Ratchet and Clank! No, you go away. Come on, I know it's here somewhere. Where did I... Ah, here we go. Ratchet and Clank! We've got guns, we've got robots, we've got more guns, and we've got corporate greed all bundled together in an action platformer that still sees new titles released as recently as 2021. So I'm gonna go back, all the way back to the beginning. I'm gonna dive deep into this 4:6 aspect ratio and find out if Ratchet and Clank, not that one, is still a good game in 2023. Our introduction to this world is delivered in a very unique way that I really enjoyed. The entire cutscene is very limited in terms of dialogue, but it still gets the point across beautifully. This guy is building a ship, but he's missing a part and that makes him sad. This guy was supposed to be a big bad robot, but through some cosmically inept assembly line, he ended up small. Something bad is happening and the robots are part of it, so he escapes. Little robot crashes on the planet with our sad friend and our adventure can begin. Just like that, we get right into the gameplay. First up, I, of course, need to talk about the controls. Ratchet has a lot of weight to his movement. He may turn on a dime, but there's some definite momentum to his tiny little body, so he will slide around a bit every now and then. It's nothing major, and none of the platforming is ever difficult enough that I felt the movement held me back. And hey, there's even an option to make the camera normal right away, so I'm a happy camper. Combat is, of course, also a major focus here, so how does that feel? Well, honestly, it varies from only okay to not great depending on the area. We have two forms of attack: melee with this 50-pound wrench and ranged with a variety of different options. The wrench is a solid choice for almost every encounter. It doesn't do as much damage, but the range is larger than you'd think while still also somehow not being quite enough, and there's no denying the satisfaction of beating some bad guys into a coma with a wrench the size of a 10-year-old. Guns are a different beast entirely. The focus here, at least to an extent, is on fun over function. There are more than a dozen weapons to choose from, even more if you consider the golden variants unlocked way later. Each one does something completely unique, from a standard blaster to a chicken ray to a tactical guided missile launcher. The gunplay is where this game really tries its best to shine. Not every weapon is great, I'm looking at you, worthless mine thrower, but most do have their uses, and I can't pretend that most aren't at least fun to some degree. Back to the game, where we can find our protagonist whacking some frogs for fun. We make it to the shipwreck and steal ourselves a little robot to make our own ship fly.
Interesting.
Yay! Quick side note, while there is an option in the pause menu for subtitles, only some cutscenes have them. Why this is, I have no idea. Likely some cosmic joke by the old gods designed to torture me, but it's something worth mentioning. So this yam, Drek, is solving the issue of overpopulation in the single most efficient way possible, just building a new planet. To do this, he's going to take pieces of other planets and crazy glue them together. This will, of course, have a major impact on the collective trout populations, and we can't just let that slide. However, and kids take notes here, we decide it's best to hand this matter over to the proper authorities rather than just take care of it ourselves, so we're off to find Captain Quark. No vigilante justice for this duo. Not yet, at least. We get shot down, because, you know, the plot needs to happen, and land on a nice, quaint little planet in the process of total annihilation. Oh, and we are now in desperate need of a rental spaceship. Saving the locals will put them in our debt, which could lead to a ship, so we head off to do that. Quick pit stop for some cave exploration and to help out a local plumber, and I've yet again got something to talk about for a moment. At various points throughout this game, characters will demand some money from you. This happens both in optional situations, but is also mandatory a fair number of times. Between this and constantly needing thousands of bolts to purchase the next gun, it's really easy to run low on funds. Fortunately, this is almost never really a problem, as simply leaving the planet and returning is enough to respawn everything, making farming for money annoying, but not too much of a hassle. A nice little round of robot bashing for the sake of our own greater good later, and we just so happen to save the mayor. He gives us another lead on Captain Quark, and hey, a shiny new spaceship. Remember everyone, good deeds for the sake of personal gain are still technically good deeds. Metropolis is up next, and the goal is to find some nerd who might know where Quark is. First, we need to prove ourselves at the parkour track.
Parkour! Michael, parkour! Parkour!
We get yelled at for not being good enough by a big robot lady, which surely unlocked several kinks for a few kids back in the day, and so we have to buy the new swing shot from her instead of getting it for free. Easy enough, and now we can be a budget Spider-Man. Moving on, we've killed some robot dogs that they definitely didn't need to make wine, but they did anyway, and we find the nerd. He doesn't know where Quark is, because why would he? Come on guys, this was a stupid idea. He does, however, upgrade Clank to have helicopter arms, which is useful and unlocks some new mobility options, namely high jumps, long jumps, and gliding. We take make a nice breezy trip on the safest train in New York and are rewarded with another infobot, giving us the idea to take out the robot leader because honestly, he doesn't look that tough. First though, I'm gonna go save alien Tony Hawk and his agent from some innocent local wildlife. Coming here gets us the Trespasser, which is how we'll unlock a couple doors moving forward. The lockpicking minigame is pretty simple, just flail around wildly until everything lights up green and you're good to go. Saving Mr. Skidmark nets us a hoverboard for use later, so all in all this has been a pretty profitable little vacation. Back to saving the galaxy, I guess. In a mid-mission cutscene, we see that Drek's planet is damn near half done at this point, meaning surely billions of lives have already been lost while we dicked around, but the real takeaway is that Drek is really ugly. Tree Planet is fine overall, but nothing to write home about. These jumps here are where I first had a bit of trouble with the platforming, but I got there in the end, and now it's time to put a very late stop to an illegal logging operation. Eudora is also where we get the
Suck Cannon,
which lets us pull in small enemies and launch them like a low-velocity rocket. I didn't find too many uses for this, but it can be handy in a pinch. The robot leader, in a true display of tactical genius, runs away at the first sign of danger. Given how easily we've taken out all his friends, I can't say I really blame him. He also poops out another infobot for us. Ratchet proves he doesn't really care about the fate of the galaxy, so we head off to the Blarg Station to pick up a few new toys. I don't mind saying it, I really hate the Blarg Station. The enemies are too plentiful for us not having any real iframes, the platforming is a chore more often than not, and the boss, hoo boy the boss. It doesn't seem that challenging at first, but then it drops an entire platoon of frogs at your feet and the game expects you to just deal with that like it isn't some kind of biblical plague. I did beat him, eventually, and the solution was of course just sheer overwhelming force. We do however get our first taste of Clank gameplay. He's a little guy, so he moves pretty slow and can't jump very high. To make up for this, we get to play some Pikmin with a few deathbots, and it's a solid 7 out of 10 experience overall. We steal and purchase a few new toys, including some overpriced soap shoes, and I can put this whole place well behind me. Up next is a place literally called Blackwater City because nuance is for scrubs, and this place is another I really just dislike overall. The design is nice, there's always something fun about a seedy futuristic city, but the amoeboid enemies are a pain, and I hate when the solution to difficulty is just to throw an order of magnitude more enemies at you, hoping one of the dozen shots fired will kill the player. And then there's the hoverboarding section. Listen, Skate 2 was one of my favorite games growing up, and this is just not it. I don't know if I'm missing something, I know I probably am, but this is just so slow and practically brain dead. Hit the arrows and go through rings to go faster, try not to hit too many walls, and it's an easy win. I understand needing gimmicks to spice up the gameplay, but this felt more tedious than anything else. Anyway, we trudge through the sewers because what early 2000s game isn't complete without a sick sewer level, and finally meet up with Quark after paying off his bodyguard.
You see how it works? You grease the hinges, the door opens.
Quark is immediately way too nice to us given that we just barged into his room, but claims he's so happy we're here because now we can take on Drek together. First though, we need to pass a gauntlet on his base to prove ourselves worthy, and hopefully not die in the process. Quark's gauntlet is a fun little test of our abilities. It combines combat, platforming, and light puzzle solving in some fun ways to challenge the player at least a little bit. This ends with the big, shocking, totally unexpected surprise twist that Quark is a bad guy. He sicks a big monster slave on us and floats off, patting himself on the back for a job well done. I didn't talk about it before, so I'll talk about it now. The bosses in this game suck. There aren't many, and those that are challenging aren't challenging in a fun way. The big bug from earlier was just an annoying ads boss, and this guy, well, just look at this. 90% of the fight looked like this. I will talk more in detail about the final boss when we get to him, and oh boy do I have some things to say about him. So we kill the helpless slave monster, and now Ratchet and Clank hate each other. This whole conflict lasts for way too long and feels really undeserved. It all stems from the fact that Ratchet just wants a fun adventure, and Clank wants to save the galaxy. They spend the next few planets at odds with one another, and I spent the entire time just thinking, why? What does the story gain from having these two fight for more than 15 minutes? The answer answer is nothing. It serves no purpose. They never separate, it never culminates in any kind of big revelation, and it only really resolves itself at the end when Ratchet realizes he does want to save the galaxy, and they get to be best buddies again. What a worthless plot tangent. Anyway, up next is the War Planet, to save this general overcome with what is surely crippling PTSD. He needs us to break into a robot base and blow up some ships, causing a ruckus in the sky. But in order to do that, we need some magnet shoes to sneak in through a side entrance. The magnet shoes are over on a horribly polluted planet, and Ratchet can't breathe toxic gas, so this next part is all on Clank. This whole section makes me really glad we didn't see more of this gameplay in this title. The mechanics just aren't quite there enough yet for this to be a major focus. The puzzles are fun, mostly just getting the cute little deathbots up some stairs, but the slow movement makes it a chore. Commanding an army of deathbot children to mow down enemies is pretty fun though. Clank gets the magnet boots, and the two have another argument I couldn't care less about. I mean, seriously, at this point Ratchet is just being rude for the sake of it. Clank made a mistake, and Ratchet just can't let it go. I'd be more on his side if we'd been maimed, but that didn't happen, so he really just needs to get over it already. I do decide to head over to the resort planet for some much needed R&R, but as it turns out, the Blarg are causing problems here too. Come on, is there really no greater galactic army or something that could be handling these things? Surely the entire galaxy isn't one giant free-for-all, right? This guy needs us to escort him to the other end of the resort because only we can actually do anything around here, so we of course oblige because he'll give us an O2 helmet as a reward. Remember kids, selfish good deeds are still technically good deeds. We kill an entire generation of fish and get this guy where he needs to go. The mechanic upgrades Clank to a jet booster, which does change mobility a bit, but it isn't a giant alteration. We also learn we can't pilot this ship just yet because we need a special helmet to do so, and we don't have that yet, so I guess I'll just go fuck myself. Back to the War Planet, and we break into the robot base using a needlessly complicated metal walkway and get to the anti-air guns. The plumber from before makes a grand return, still chasing that bag, and he lets us use the gun to shoot down some Blarg ships. Why did we do this? No idea. It has no overall impact on the Blarg's plan, but is sure to cause them a bit of annoyance, so I guess that's good enough. We also use the grind boots to save this kid who just joined the army to pay for college, which, yeah, that checks out. He gives us an info bot leading us to a lab making a helmet used to pilot ships, which just so happens to be exactly what we need, so I guess we'll head there next. Blow up the requisite number of robots and robot adjacent things, and now we've got our pilot helmet. So whoopee, now it's back to Resort Town to blow up even more Blarg ships for no apparent reason other than maybe someone asked us to. Never mind the threat of billions of lives being lost every second as Drek rips planets to shreds, we've got a few dozen flighters on an Airbnb to blow up. Where to next? Well, we've got the O2 mask, so now Ratchet can breathe in the toxic fumes of that planet from before, and I've got nowhere else to be apparently, so let's head there. These crabs sucked, but then I learned you can just ignore them if you're careful, so I opted to do that instead. Our reward is, of course, another infobot, and is that plot? Is that something we can go do to actually fight against the main antagonist of this game? I can't believe it. My birthday came early this year. Let's go do that. Right here, we pick up what is, ironically, my favorite weapon in the game, a big electric boxing glove. It takes no ammo, offers some invincibility, and one-shots most enemies, so I will be using this for most of the rest of the game. We destroy the Planet Buster missile by dropping it into the planet we are currently on, which I'm sure won't be a problem, and head off to stop another Blarg invasion on yet another planet. I haven't directly mentioned this yet, but I do have a major gripe with the way this story progresses. Very, very rarely did I ever feel like I was actually fighting against the main threat. For the most part, the beats of this game amount to what can be best described as busy work while Drek enacts his master plan in the background and we largely do nothing. Sure, we save some people here and there, maybe blow up a few robots, but the villain, the whole reason we should be on this journey, is always so far away and actively winning to the point where I can't really even call us heroes. At best, we were a cleanup crew profiteering off the whole disaster left behind by the Blarg threat. Anyway, we end up on a big spaceship, fighting our way past turrets that can't shoot up, and finally get a confrontation with Quark himself. This battle takes the form of a lackluster dogfight, just moving side to side and hitting his engines enough to blow them all up. What is nice is that as his health drops lower and lower, Quark eventually begins pleading with you not to kill him, even going so far as to say we've passed the test in a desperate attempt to save his own skin, which is perfectly in line with his character, and I love this little touch. Up next is a big rainy tiny city which is almost completely irrelevant plot-wise, so I'm going to skip over it. I'm sorry to everyone who really loves this level, we can't all have the best taste. This takes us to a factory where robots are being built, and we should probably do something about that, so I guess we'll head there next. A scientist gives Clank the best upgrade to date, a crossover with Neon Genesis Evangelion. Eva Clank makes short work of all the killer robots, which surely cost millions each, and we change back before the third impact ruins everything. Now we need a device to disguise ourselves as a robot, which we can find at Gadgetron. Gadgetron is of course the company all of our guns come from, and in yet another nice little touch, their defense robots actually use our own guns against us in a few different sections. I really do love little details like this. These easily could have been just standard blaster wielding robots, but going that extra mile makes moments like this really stand out. In order to get the robot disguise, we need to win another hoverboard race, and my god, this one is a nightmare. Again, maybe I'm just missing something, but I did this dozens of times over the course of nearly an hour, failing over and over again until finally, on my last attempt before needing a break to scream into a pillow, I managed to clutch out a victory by sheer luck. Robot disguise now in hand, we head back to the robot factory and use it to get past the force fields blocking our way. I'll just say, while I do think it's cute, the whole sneaking through bit is unnecessary and more annoying to me than it is fun. It's used quite a bit in the last few levels, and I would honestly have just rathered it not be in the game at all, but what are you gonna do? Second to last mission now is the moon base, and honestly, Ratchet, it really feels like Veldin might be a little screwed already. We do our best anyway and fight through the different ships until we come up to where Drek should be. He is, of course, not here right now and is instead planetside, waiting to press the button that will ensure the destruction of Ratchet's homeworld. This is all because Veldin is apparently in the perfect orbit, whatever that means. It's probably just some really destructively petty way to get back at us for being a bit annoying. Also, the Blarg planet is done being built, so we definitely lost, right? Like billions upon billions of lives are already gone. This will be a Pyrrhic victory if ever there was one. Whatever, let's head down to Veldin and show this little potato man what it means to make the protagonist of a 2000s era video game angry. The return to Veldin is a nice way to finish the game. We go through the same area we first gained control of this character in, and even go beyond that to see more of his homeworld. There are some annoying parts, mostly just due to the checkpoints being a bit further back than I would really like, but all in all I can't complain too much. And now, the final boss. Drek, being the big strong potato that he is, elects to fight us in a comically oversized mech, which I promise isn't overcompensating for anything, and our fight begins. This fight is broken down into phases. The first phase takes all of about 4 seconds in big Clank mode, and then he shrinks us down and runs away to start the fight proper. Phase 2 is broken into a couple rocky platforms where he fires missiles, mines, and rings of fire at us while we fire away. Once he's taken enough damage, he'll run away again and we have to give chase. The final phase is where I feel this boss devolves into just being plain awful. He's just got way too much health and moves way too fast. The sheer number of projectiles, adds, and other miscellaneous threats make the entire process a nightmare. Dying in this fight, even right here at the end, puts you right back after the Mecha Clank section, so you have to do all the tedious work from the beginning. There are so many ways this fight could have been better, but the main one is just reducing this guy's health pool by about half. When I finally beat him, the entire single attempt had taken nearly 20 minutes, which is just way too long for a boss in a game like this. Anyway, we do finally beat him, and he falls into the planet he crafted. We take this opportunity to use the destruction laser to blow the thing up, ensuring Drek is well and truly dead. Our heroes walk off into the sunset, and Ratchet never once even considered putting on a shirt. So, was this a good game? Does it hold up in 2023? Well, honestly my answer is yes and no. The gameplay is flawed, but I've definitely seen worse, and the story really suffers from some pacing and direction issues. I would have loved to see more of a direct fight between the forces of Drek and Quark versus our duo. Unfortunately, what we got was more of a galactic meandering that happened to save some lives. Would I recommend this game to someone today? Yes, I would. If you've got any interest in older games, and don't mind a meandering plot and some wonky controls, this is absolutely still a classic and a must-play for anyone interested in what games used to be like. As always, let me know what I most assuredly missed in the comments below. I won't be covering the entire Ratchet and Clank franchise, there's like 15 of them at this point, and I value what little sanity I have left. I do, however, have a fun idea for what to cover next, so keep an eye out for that.